Well, it's Saturday, back here at Amory Chev. Looks like Eric's over there getting ready with the Bobcat. Came back over here to work on the wrecker today. And for everybody, including all of us that are his friends, Eric got a smartphone. He finally got a smartphone. For you guys that don't know, Eric has had a flip phone for the last 10 years. And he finally had to get a new phone because 3G service is no longer available. He was very sad. I had to comfort him and pat him on his back and tell him it'll be okay. But he got a smartphone.
Hi there, welcome to BSF Recovery Team. In our last video, we got our power steering pump mounted and our PSC remote reservoir mounted. And in this video, we're going to do the high steer tie rod and hopefully get the steering cylinder mounted. But I wanted to address one of the comments on a recent video was asking what this is between the frame rails and the front of this square body. Brake lock system. The chassis or the frame that we used in this truck after we broke it in 2014 had a brake lock system in it because it was an electrical bucket truck. So in order to have an automatic transmission with the truck running and a PTO pump running off of the transfer case, they have to leave the transmission in gear and put the transfer case in neutral. So they needed a system to lock the brakes on the truck so it wouldn't move when some guy was up in the bucket working on power lines or lights or whatever. So what this was a brake lock system. This center section is what they call a 4-channel brake lock. So the brake lines from the master cylinder come into it, and then they go out to all 4 brakes. And there's a lever right here that creates a block off. This lever right here, we have the cable removed right now because we have the front clip off. But this lever right here blocks all those lines off. The electrical bucket truck originally had these motors on each side that would actually pump hydraulic brake pressure. So you would move this lever and it would also activate this switch that's no longer connected, and these 2 motors would pressurize brake fluid and lock up the brakes. These motors are no good anymore. They don't work. The wires aren't connected. I don't know if the switch is any good or not. So what we do is we step on the brake pedal, apply brake pressure to all 4 brakes, and then we pull the cable and it moves this lever over, and then I can take my foot off of the brake pedal and all 4 brakes stay applied. So there's your answer. It's a brake lock system.
Actually, it's pretty good. Still a lot of grease in it.
Well, we just built this front axle.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now we get to put some studs back in it that it used to have when it had the other steer arm on it. So this is going to go on here, and then our tie rod, not this one, but our new tie rod is going to go across here, and we can take this one out.
When you do that, will you have to replace the dampener as well?
The new one will not have the dampener because it will have a hydraulic ram. So there's no need for a dampener. So we install the studs into the steering knuckle. And I do not put Loctite on the studs. In a little bit I'll show you what actually keeps them tight. But I don't, in case I ever break one off, I don't want Loctite on this because That makes them really, really hard to get out and replace.
What are you knocking on, Gene?
I am weighting my exhaust system because at 3,000 RPM I have an unbelievable howl. I also have a harmonic at 1,500 RPM.
Huh.
So one of the ways to reduce it is to weight your exhaust system. And it has worked. I'm just trying a different placement. Putting it right by the muffler. Hopefully that'll reduce the drone as much as possible.
Okay. Now, we got to put the spring in here from the spring in the washer from the other cap.
Ew. Ew.
So the spring applies pressure to the plastic cup that's in there. They do also make bronze cups. This one still has the factory style plastic cups in there that sits on a cone for the upper ball joint, or is the equivalent of an upper ball joint in a normal axle. This is what they call a GM Dana 60 kingpin style front axle. So now this is what keeps everything tight. This nut has a taper on it, and there is a tapered seat here, just like your lug nuts in your wheels. And that matched taper seating together is what keeps these tight. Not Loctite, not lock washers or anything like that. It's that tapered fit, just like on your wheels, is what keeps these tight. So if you have a high steer arm that doesn't have a taper in it and doesn't use the tapered nuts, I would recommend drilling that taper in there and using the tapered nuts, because that's the best way to keep them tight. Now, there is a torque spec on those, and actually we told you what the torque spec was way back when we built this axle earlier this spring. I don't remember what that is. We might have to go to the video and check.
Baby seat cover's becoming little seat cover because she got braces now. Hardly a baby anymore. And she can't have candy, so she's all bummed out.
Oh, we just got done watching our own video, and it says between 80 and 100 foot-pounds. And we're there. Grease zerk in, we'll add a little grease, and that'll be ready to go. Now, if we install this tie rod the same without removing the other one, that should keep our toe in about the same. We will check it, of course. Now we'll take the other one off and tighten that one down. If you remember, we don't have to have a pickle fork to get these tie rod ends apart. We just hit on the end of the steer arm here, and it'll pop the tapered fit, and we'll be able to take them apart. Can't forget our grease zerks here. All right, our high steer setup is installed. Now we get to figure out how to mount the ram, weld those brackets on. To make sure that we weld the brackets on in the right spot so we get the right stroke on the hydraulic cylinder and everything, what we're going to do first is we're going to bolt the tire back on, and we're going to get our steering box centered, and we're going to get our front tires straight ahead and adjust the drag link and the toe in so everything is straight. And then we can figure out where we're going to put the hydraulic ram on. Here's a little trick that saves you back a little bit when you're dealing with big tires like this. If you roll it onto a pry bar and use the pry bar to lift it up into place and onto the lug nuts. Now we'll center our steering box. And we can see that our tires are turned way to the right. So we're going to adjust the drag length to bring them back to center without moving the box. Okay, we got our steering box centered, our steering wheel straight, and our tires straight ahead. We sighted down the side of them and lined them up, and both of them are the same. They're pointed straight ahead, or at least as close as we can figure it out right now. And while we're at it, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a tape measure check on the toe in. So the way I like to do this, because we're dealing with a solid axle, it's okay for us to have it up on jack stands and in the air. If it was an independent suspension, we would want to make sure that we have the weight of the truck on it. But a solid axle doesn't change as long as our kingpins are tight and our wheel bearings are tight and everything doesn't change when the vehicle is in the air. So what I like to do is I like to mark a lug with some chalk here and then scribe a kind of a fine line in the middle of it. I did the same on this tire over here, right here. And then what we want to do is we want to rotate that to where we're about 12 inches off the floor. And then we're going to measure across.
From the inside or outside of the lug? Or from
Right where that line is that I marked in the chalk.
Got it.
So we have 69.5 inches. And now what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the tires to the chalk marks are about 12 inches off the floor in the back. So mine's about there. Well, we better unlock the hub there.
Check this side.
I will. So about 12 inches. About 12 inches. What were we, 69.5?
69.5.
And we have 70 3/4.
Holy
back
moly.
there. So that means it's towed in quite a ways. What we want to have is we want to have about an 1/8 inch toe in. So we have to adjust our new tie rod here. And it's towed in too far, so we're going to lengthen that a little bit. And now we'll measure the back again. So we're at 70 and 3/8. Now we'll rotate them around to the front. About 12 inches off the floor. About 12 inches off the floor. And we're 70 inches even. So we're 3/8 of an inch towed in right now. We're going to bring that down a little bit less by lengthening the tie rod just a little bit more. And we have 70 1/8. And we have 70 1/4. So that gives us an 1/8 inch toe in with the tape measure. It's not 100% accurate. I wouldn't do it for a vehicle you're driving down the road, but it'll be perfectly fine for the trail. Before we figure out how and where to mount this hydraulic steering ram, we better check our steering linkage right now and see what kind of clearances we have. We're going to turn the steering lock to lock, and make sure that everything clears. Oh, is that turned all the way in the lock on the right? Oh, look at that. We have a clearance problem with our U-bolt. We'll have to trim that off. Yeah, it's still above the nut, so that's okay. And all the way to the left. These clear on this side, no problem. We're also looking at where our tie rod is and where we can possibly have the ram mounted as we're doing this. And everything looks like it'll be okay. So we'll trim that stud off, and then we'll assemble our hydraulic ram with the ends in it and the brackets and see where it fits.
So this happens more than you would think when we're filming these videos, is somebody sets something down and Eric has to go find it and hunt for it. And you wouldn't think that happens in the way he edits the videos so well, but we do spend a lot of time looking for the missing tool.
Well, they might as well cut this one off while we're here.
He did that on purpose because I was making fun of losing the tool.
Now let's assemble our ends on our hydraulic cylinder. Taking a look at things, and I think what we'll do is we'll mount our tall brackets to the axle on the body side of the cylinder.
Now she's loose.
There we go. So the plan is to have this end on our axle housing and this end to our tie rod. Now, we don't want to just weld these brackets to our tie rod, because if we do, then when we adjust toe in, if we have to ever again for any reason, there's only one spot in the rotation that tie rod can be, and that's lined with these brackets lined up to the cylinder. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to use a clamp here.
Yeah, I got a knife for you.
I'm pretty darn proud of that knife.
I am.
Blue
She
heart.
bought that at a truck stop on the way back from Utah.
Which one?
Good question.
That was the one with the race car guy.
Oh, okay.
like,
there
is
was
Is that where she bought it?
Yeah.
So we have a steel clamp to go around our tie rod, and this bracket will get welded to that steel clamp. That way, if we ever have to adjust the toe in, we can loosen the clamp, rotate the rod, and still have the bracket in the right spot for the steering cylinder. So the trick to mounting these hydraulic cylinders is you want them parallel to the tie rod and horizontal with the tie rod. That way they aren't pushing the tie rod up or down or in or out or anything like that. So our long bracket here looks like it'll work real good, attached to the axle approximately here. And then our other bracket should work out real well attached to that collar.
That was thing helping out.
Somewhere in this area here. Actually, it'll be further down because we'll have to center the hydraulic cylinder in its stroke when we mount that. Again, that's one of the reasons why this one's a clamp and we can make it adjustable. So we're going to mark our axle here where we have to clean off all the mud and the rust to get a nice clean spot to weld. All right, let's see how that's going to fit. Oh, does that look nice and parallel? You know, it's close to parallel.
So you
I
don't
think the
have to-
triangle part has to go out here
Sure.
so it doesn't bind on the flat to the heim joint here.
That looks better.
Yeah. Let's see if we can find mid-stroke on this ram. So 16 inches, just under 16, 15 3/4 inches collapse right there. We'll turn this out a little bit and make it an even 16. There we go. Now let's see if we can get a little air in there.
How'd that taste?
Like 30 weight. 21 3/4. So 16 to 21 3/4 is
5 1/4.
5 1/4.
Yeah, so.
So half of 5 1/4,
Would be 2 5/8, right?
2 5/8. So 16 and 2 5/8 is
18 5/8.
18 5/8. So center of the ram should be 18 5/8. $18 3/4.
Pat him on the back. Got it within an 1/8 inch.
18 1/2. That's close enough for the moment.
Is the plan coming together?
It looks like it's gonna fit good. Well, everything's welded together and it's all on there. We'll cycle the steering now and see if we did our job right, see if everything clears. Okay, looks good. Looks good. I don't think our ram's bottomed out. No, we're against the stops. Okay, center it up. Well, now we get to take it apart a little bit, paint some of the pieces. It's getting late. I know you guys would like to see this all done. So would I, believe it or not. But we've been here for a lot of hours already. It's getting late. It's way past dinner time. We haven't eaten dinner yet. So we're going to take it apart. We're going to spray some paint, and then we're going to come back tomorrow and finish it up. We'll let that dry. Thanks for watching, BSF Recovery Team. Keep wheeling. Be safe out there. Maybe we'll see you in the woods.